Welcome down the warp pipe. I can't believe the Nintendo Switch OLED model was just dropped this morning. I originally had another video for today and was planning on editing it kind of all day and then releasing later on in the day. But I have to get my thoughts out about this, and more specifically, I have to get out what Ty, would change about this. Because I can't believe Nintendo just Nintendo'd the Switch Pro, effectively. Actually, I shouldn't be surprised. They're Nintendo. Okay, so if you're new around here, make sure to check out some of the other videos and hit subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. But with that out of the way, I just have to get into the basic bare bones tone deafness that was done with this release. I'm not saying it's all bad. They did a lot of cool improvements to the system. Okay, so it has an OLED screen and it's 7-inch. Cool. That was kind of rumored for a while, and sort of leaks were here and there, and it just makes sense because updating the older screen to an OLED will make it more battery efficient, look nicer, and really the older model, I'm sure the screen was getting sort of out of date and no longer being produced. The other thing that has me wondering with this is the built-in processor, because as far as I understand, the Tegra X1, which is what the Nintendo Switch uses, isn't produced anymore by NVIDIA. They've made new models and new revisions, so maybe this is using something else to it, but I don't know. Regardless of that though, there's a lot of features here that just nobody was kind of asking for high up, and were all low-hanging fruit that Nintendo managed to do. Like, for example, the Ethernet adapter being built into the dock. Great addition. I think it should have been there from the start, but I don't really care. You can buy a USB adapter. Okay. The other thing, having the Switch have a larger screen, again, great, but it still has to fit within the context of the Joy-Cons, so cool. No revision to the Joy-Cons. Why didn't they revise the Joy-Cons? The Joy-Con drift is awful. The other low-hanging fruit here is stuff like the stand, which, okay, great, it's a better stand, but most of us that care to use the stand have actually went and bought something to compensate for that already, because the initial stand design was so bad. Like, it's mind-boggling. The other thing is the additional storage going from 32 gigs to 64 gigs. Again, most of us that care have went and bought a micro SD card by now, because you didn't add a whole bunch of storage. I would get if they made it like, I don't know, 256 gigs. Okay, that's a significant jump up from 32. But they went and made it 64. They only doubled it. Like, what were they thinking? I get it, they probably want to keep costs down, but it's insignificant. It was probably they couldn't get 32 gig modules anymore, so they had to go with 64. It's just, oh my goodness. Oh yeah, also the enhanced audio. I don't think anyone cared about the audio on the Nintendo Switch. At least I didn't, and I haven't heard anyone complain about it. It was fine, it got the job done, and if you really cared, you used a good quality headset. So I will give Nintendo sort of props here for making a cool design with the white going with like the almost like charcoal color that the Nintendo Switch normally is. It actually looks quite nice and gives it a nice distinguished look. Okay, now I gotta get into what I would change on this, because I can't, like, oh my goodness. Okay, first off, all the stuff they added, great. Keep it there, not a big deal. But that internal storage, like I said, beef it up to 256 gigs, at least. Ideally, something like 512. But yeah, game sizes aren't a huge problem on the Nintendo Switch, so 256 would have been perfectly fine. And I'm sure you could have gotten it cheap enough that it wouldn't really have impacted the overall pricing of the system. The other thing here is that I would have updated the Wi-Fi to be Wi-Fi 6. It's kind of just a standard now. I know that the PS5 has it. I don't think the Series X has it, but just update that Wi-Fi 6 so you can get better range would be awesome. The other obvious thing here is that the dock would support 4K. Now, I don't care whether you actually have the games running native 4K. I've said this before in previous videos, but I'll reiterate it here. As long as you have a good TV, lower resolutions still look phenomenal. I was actually just thinking last night while my wife was playing Animal Crossing that the 1080p on an 85-inch TV from the Nintendo Switch still looks fine because of the stylized graphics. But it would just be nice to have that DLSS upscaling that is offered on the NVIDIA GPUs and is offered on their newer mobile chips, because why don't you have that as an option? That should be a thing, and should be a thing in this. You don't need the games running native 4K unless they're, pixels artwork or a low graphical fidelity that can run it, then cool. But at least have the dock the ability to output both that and, HDR, which I would argue matters significantly more. Breath of the Wild with HDR looks beautiful. Fake screenshots and fake video that can be done, it would look gorgeous. More importantly, everyone's hopes got pushed up into the sky that, hey, a Switch Pro has to be real. We're gonna get it to have upscaled 4K, we're gonna get it to have HDR, and like I said, the resolution isn't that big of a deal if you have a good enough TV, and have a TV or monitor that is well designed and has good pixel structure. But the thing is, it has none of that. It doesn't have HDR, it doesn't have upscaled, it doesn't have HDMI 2.0 even on the dock, because those are all features they would advertise, if not in the video, on their website, and they don't. So yeah, change that, Nintendo. Or, maybe they're just holding out for a Switch Pro next year with Breath of the Wild 2. That's what I'm crossing my fingers on. But let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on the Switch OLED model. Is it something you're excited about? Because for me, I was waiting for a Switch Pro to release so I could buy another Switch and have a Switch Pro and a Switch. So, if my wife's playing Animal Crossing on the Switch, I can play Breath of the Wild 2 on the Switch Pro. But regardless of that, like I said before, let me know in the comments below what your opinions are on this, because this is a huge letdown for me personally. But there's got to be a target market for it, because Nintendo doesn't do something stupid, do they? Ever? And until then, I'll catch you next Games Tuesday. I promise that other video is going to be there. It's a fun one. It's about my birthday, when I was 6. This is like a negative birthday present.